What's up guys, welcome back to THM, and if you've been following my little series on my Wildcat, you know that I've already done quite a bit of preventive maintenance, but we're not done just yet. This will more than likely be, hopefully, the last video when it comes to the preventive maintenance part for my machine. But anyways, in the previous video, I replaced the hanger bearing, or as they call it, the carrier bearing, because it needed some love. It was kind of worn out. Still trying to figure out what that vibration's all about. We're gonna, stay tuned on that because we'll go for a ride whenever it gets better outside. Still pretty cold out here. But in today's video, what I want to show you is how to check the valve clearance in your Wildcat trail. This is a 700cc with a valve over tappet or shim over under bucket kind of setup. Everybody calls it something different, but basically there's shims that are taking up the clearance, so it's not easily adjustable, as you'll see. So I've already got started because I am trying to keep the video kind of to the point. So you need to remove the bottom cargo box, and also, I had another cargo box built into the box. Yeah, a box instead of a box, but it works well, keeps everything kind of dry. You also have to remove the taillight assembly. And if you're struggling trying to remove this here, I'm going to show you what exactly is holding you up, because it was really tricky. So this plastic cover, which normally sits right over top here, actually that center section kind of droops down. I moved it out of the way so we can have access to the valve cover. But this top section, if I flip it over here, there are two screws. Sorry guys. There's two screws, one over here and one here, that you're gonna have to remove with like a very small screwdriver. What I ended up doing is using a 1/4-inch ratchet with a 1/4-inch bit and I believe it's a T30. Get underneath there and just be able to kind of spin it, because it's actually kind of like right here. Anyways, that's how you get that out. So let's get to what we need to do next. So it was at this point, after everything was apart, I made sure to really clean this engine area, especially the valve cover where I'm going to be working. So I took out my vacuumed up the bulk of the dust and then dirt. Also my blowgun, kind of blow all of the loose stuff away from this area, because I don't want to have anything fall into my engine, because if it does, that kind of defeats the purpose of doing preventative maintenance. We're going to have a problem in the future. So you're probably also wondering, well, why do you need to check your valves, and what's a symptom to having to check your valves or showing that it could be an issue? Well, there's a few symptoms. One of them could be low power. Normally it's usually causes, the very first symptom would be something along the lines of hard starting, because the valves are partially open due to the lack of clearance. Those are the two major ones that come to mind, but it is a maintenance item because these engines run pretty hard, high RPM, so it's a good idea to check them. Arctic Cat recommends that you check the valves on these engines every 500 miles. So I actually have 2,900 kilometers. That ends up being about 1,800 miles. I don't know if it's ever been done because I'm the second owner, but I can tell you that so far, everything I've touched back here, I seem to have been the only one. Everything was pretty original. So I'm assuming that I'll be the first one to go in there and take a look. And crossing my fingers that it doesn't need to be done, because it's not fun. Removing the valve cover isn't that bad. You're just going to remove your PCV hose over here, get that out of the way. There's one connector up here. You just unplug that. And I marked my spark plug wires just so I don't get them mixed up. And then you're going to remove those. And of course the 4 retaining bolts all the way around. That's going to have to get removed. Also down on the right side of the engine, I've already got it set up here. I've got the plug removed. There's a larger plug and a smaller one up here, so that I can rotate the engine. And that's going to help us, because once the valves are exposed, and we start rotating, there's also going to be a little indicator, or should be, sorry, inside here. We'll see top dead center. and that's kind of where you want your engine to be. You want it top dead center on compression with the lobes all the way up. Then you can make a measurement. Okay, so let's start by pulling the connector here, just like that, followed by the PCV. So far everything's coming apart nice because I think it's been maintained pretty well. At least I would presume. Then, like I said, we're gonna just pull the spark plug caps. There you go. And then also gonna pull the plugs actually, because that's gonna make it much easier to rotate. So let me go get my wrench for that. So this is just a 5/8 spark plug wrench, and if you haven't replaced your spark plugs, this would be a very good time to do so, because I mean, you're in here already, you got them out. So let's see what one plug looks like. Well, it's not bad. It looks like it's running a little on the warm side, but not bad at all. Probably a good thing that I run premium fuel, because as you can tell, it's light brown. And same deal over here. I'm okay with that. I replaced these a short while ago, so probably why they look the way they do, but that's good. So now we can carry on with removing the 4 bolts here. So these bolts are kind of cool because you can't really take them out. I mean, I suppose you could, but you're going to probably end up having to replace these gaskets. So you can't lose them anyway, so that's a good thing. And with a rubber mallet, if you have a hard time with the gasket being stuck to the head, which is pretty normal, don't sweat it, just lightly tap the valve cover a little bit and loosen it up. See, there you go. You can see that it broke it loose, and then this should come right out. Still a little sticky. There you go. Just like that. Looks nice and clean in here. And for those of you who didn't know, this engine's manufactured by Kimco. Yeah, believe it or not. I still think that they're amazing power plants. They're light, they're powerful for what they are, and they run really good. So, good job, guys. And this is an overhead view of what I'm looking at. So right down here, I'm going to turn my light on here. So right down here, you got your cams. So you got over here is your intake cam, and then right down below is your shim, or your bucket, sorry. And underneath that is the shim. And then same thing up here, got your exhaust, your cam, and right further down, it's hard to see, but it's in there. There'll be a bucket. Now, what we need to do is we need to measure the distance between that cam and that shim. I keep saying shim, sorry. The cam, lobe, and the bucket. So for the intake, it's 6/1000ths of an inch, and the exhaust is 9/1000ths. Wildcat recommends that you rotate the engine over twice, and this is just to make sure that there's no oil or anything left, I guess, in between all the components. So we're going to do that right now and start measuring. 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, and that would be 2. Now that we've rotated the engine over twice to get rid of all that excess oil and all that stuff between the components, what we need to do is find the compression stroke on the cylinder that we want to measure. So let's do that. So what I found works easiest for me is I'm covering the hole because I don't have big fingers, so I can't fully cover the hole. I found a bushing that is going to help me do that. So cover a hole like that, it's nice and clean. Then I'll be able to put my finger over top of that bushing and listen. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to reach over, rotate that engine. Not exactly the easiest thing to do, but I'm going to rotate it over until I can feel the air rushing out of this particular cylinder. Right there. So the air is rushing out of that cylinder. So again, according to Wildcat, you need to set the lobes directly away from the valves, then you can measure them. Okay, so we're looking at the exhaust cam right now on the right side cylinder, so I'm going to call it number 2 because I can't remember which one is which, but that doesn't matter because this cylinder right now is on compression stroke, and I slightly turned the cylinder or the engine over just enough so that this lobe is directly away from the tappet, which is what Wildcat wants. Now I have my 9th thou feeler gauge here. You can either try and get it in here, and bend you can do this. You can bend your feeler gauge, but I also found that you can kind of sneak it right down in here, in between, and just kind of get it in there. So the fact that I can get my 9th thou gauge in here is a really good thing. If I couldn't, that means that the clearance is not appropriate. Yeah, there you go. So that's good. So this particular set of valves, they're good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the engine just enough so that the cam lobes are facing up away from the tappets that we can see here. Much easier to see on the intake. And we're going to do the same thing and hope that we have the same results. This is 9th thou on the exhaust, and this is 6th thou. I know I said it before, but don't mix them up, because if you do, that could be bad. So we're looking at the intake now, and same thing. I rotated the engine over just enough so that the cam lobes are facing directly away, and I'm going to do the same trick here where I'm going to slide my feeler gauge underneath, and you're going to see the tip of my feeler gauge right there. And that again is a beautiful thing. So let's see if we can do the same on the other valve. A little hard to do with one hand. I'm trying to hold the camera and do the measuring. And same results here, guys. Fantastic. That is really good. So that means this cylinder on this side is good. The valve clearances are fine. I don't have to adjust them, which is great. Now we're going to do this one. Put my bushing in there, followed by my thumb or my finger, and then rotate. Alright, so I'm not quite sure why I went through the whole thing of trying to find top dead center, because in reality 360 degrees of rotation will bring you up to the next one. So anyways, we are where we need to be. So let's do the same thing here. So we got my 9th thou feeler gauge. I'm going to sneak it behind here. And yes, that's good. And that one's good as well. A little tighter on that one, but it still fits. So that's a good thing. Now let's go to our 6th thou. We're going to have to move it just a little bit to make that cam lobe come all the way up. Right about there. And again, let's see if I can sneak this through. It seems easier with the thicker feeler gauge. There we go. It's coming right across, guys. That's so amazing. I was so concerned because in a minute I'll explain to you what happens if you don't have the proper clearance and what you need to do to correct it. Oh, that's so good. So luckily for me, in this instance, everything is good. So we're ready to button it back up and we're good to go. So that's how you do a valve adjustment on a Wildcat trail. But you have no idea how happy I am that I don't have to do any more steps than this. So let's talk about what I would have to do in order to make an adjustment on any one of these particular valves. So we have 8 valves, right? So 4 per cylinder. And if I needed to make an adjustment, what I would have to do is remove the cam holder here, remove the cam chain, expose the cams and get them out of the way completely, like pull them right out, and then individually pull out one of those buckets, or those tappets as some people call them. Like the book calls them a tappet, but they look like a bucket upside down, kind of like a dish like this, except they're nice and square like sided. Then underneath that there'd be a shim. That shim would usually have a number written on the bottom of it, something like, well, you'd see here on your feeler gauge. You'd have a number, and I'm pretty sure that they usually reference the thickness of the shim itself, or you can measure it if you don't have anything. Then you have to replace that shim with an appropriate thickness shim to make up the difference. So if you find that you're not able to put any of the feeler gauges down in between the cam and that tappet, what you need to do, like I started at 6 thou because that's what the tolerances are for the intake, and also 9 for the exhaust. If you can't fit 6, work your way down to 5, all the way down to where you can fit 1. Then you need to record that, because you're going to need to know how much of a difference there is, or how much you need of a clearance. So let's say you can only fit a 4 thou in there. So now you need 2 thou of clearance. If your shim, for example, is a 220, well then you know that your shim has to be a 218 to make up for that 2 thou of clearance. So Wildcat also did something that I thought was really neat. Let me show you. In the service manual, they made it even easier for you to figure out what you need to do to find your shim. So I'm going to see if I can somehow take a picture of this, link it, or what have you to the description box, or at the very least, I'm talking about it now. But what you need to do, and I'll even read out the instructions for you. So if you are out of tolerance, you need to do these 4 steps. So you can pause the video if you guys need it, and that way there you'll have it. But to select the correct replacement shim for an out of specification clearance, you have to note the digit on the surface of that existing shim, and then refer to the tappet selection table, which is on the back side of this. So to the left of the column, you need to use your measured tappet clearance. So that'd be over here. So again, let's use 220 as an example, because that's what I did earlier. So there's our 220. Then you would find the present shim, and then what do they say here? Find the present shim size at the top side horizontal column. Okay, so then you have your 220. So you got 220 here, and then we're going to find 220 up here, right up here. And at those intersecting lines, which is 260, according to what they're saying here, it would be the shim that you need. So match the clearance in the vertical column with the present shim size to obtain the recommended shim replacement. So there is one for the intake, and there's also a table for the exhaust. So again, here's the intake. If you guys need to pause it, do what you need to do. And this is your exhaust table. And in the background is my furnace. So why do I find that valve clearance table so neat? Well, that's because when I was at a dealership doing those types of valve clearance adjustments on, let's say, snowmobiles, because they also use that with the newer 4-strokes, I would have to do some math, essentially. I would, like I said earlier, you take out the original shim. After you know what your existing clearance is, you would write it down. So let's say you have an existing clearance of 2 thou and you need 6 thou. You write that down in I would make circles essentially of where the valves are and mark down the existing clearance, then measure the shim, then go into the bin because they come as a kit. Go through, figure out which shim needs to be installed in that location to gain that clearance. Now you have to remember, depending on your application, chances are if you're trying to remove some or add clearance, you have to remove a shim, like thickness wise, so your shim will get thinner, and then do that for every single valve. Having that particular table eliminates a lot of that, back and forth, because sometimes you put it back together, recheck everything, and find out that it's still not within tolerance because you weren't super accurate with your measuring. You were able to slide in a 2 thou feeler gauge, but in reality it was closer to 3 or something like that. So that's why I really like that particular valve tappet clearance table. And anyways guys, that's going to do it for today's video, and I hope that this is going to help out somebody out there who has one of these and needs to do a valve clearance inspection. Now clearly I think that I'm the only one who's done it at this point, and I'm happy to report that if you do regular maintenance, you may not have to deal with having to take those cams apart and do that exhaust and intake shim clearance. I keep saying clearance, my god, that's like 50 clearance words during this video. So I'm also going to add a couple of maintenance items that can help you eliminate this issue, like having to replace those shims. Very first one that I'm going to say, and you guys I'm sure will agree with me, oil changes are kind of important because you don't want anything, because that cam is actually pressing right down on that bucket or that tappet, you don't want that to wear, and that would definitely change your clearance. The other thing is you don't want any dirty air making its way and being ingested into the engine. So a good clean air filter, keep on top of that. Wildcat in this particular application is a very good system in my opinion. There's a pre-filter over here which is oiled, as well as a 2-stage filter inside the air box. So for the air to be super clean, again, that's very important, because that dirty air that sits on those valve seats can cause wear, and again that valve seat will start to thin out, forcing that valve to make it migrate essentially into the shim and remove that clearance. So again, if you've never done this before, it can be a little bit intimidating. However, I hope that I was able to shed some light on this and make it a lot easier for you guys out there. And for those of you who are just watching for fun, I think that's awesome as well. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. So thank you so much for watching. If you did like the video, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one.